We got a handful of new weapon perks and origin traits in Season of the Witch, and today I want to go through each one in detail with the overall goal of letting you know which ones you should check out and which ones might not be worth your time. But real quick, I gotta tell you about Geologie. They're the sponsor of today's video, so let's thank them. Geologie is a 25-time award-winning skin, hair, and body care company. I feel like every time I mention these folks, that number just keeps getting bigger. Geologie creates simple and effective skincare and healthcare routines customized just for you with ingredients that are proven to work. Look, just because we're out here grinding D2 or whatever other game doesn't mean we have to become sweaty bridge trolls with greasy skin. Not only is Geologie the best in the skincare game, but they also have released a ton of new amazing hair, body, and other skin products as well. Whatever you need, Geologie has you covered. As for me, I'm hella on board with their shampoo. Smells damn good, IMHO. Right now, for a limited time, they're hooking you up with an absolutely insane offer. Use my code Fallout70 and Geologie will give you 70% off their award-winning skincare trial set. On top of that, they'll give you an additional bonus offer of up to 30% off one of the skin, hair, and body add-on products when you add it to your trial. Again, 70% off with code Fallout70. Jump on that offer before it's gone. Thank you, Geologie. Alright, now let's dive in, starting with the perk Heal Clip. Reloading after a final blow will give you and nearby allies Cure. This is 100% IMO a PvE weapon perk, and something I'm sure your teammates will probably appreciate. Because we're talking about Cure and not Restoration, don't expect to become an Omega Mercy level winged healing goddess, and definitely don't expect any thanks from your friendly neighborhood Laurely Hammer Bonk Titan, who probably didn't even notice your heal clip activating while they bathe in forever health. But yeah, not a bad perk in PvE overall. In PvP though, I'm sorta less thrilled about it. Cure level 1 I think is only 30 HP, which isn't really a ton. There definitely could be situations where heal clip could wind up saving your bacon, but for the most part, I'd much rather have perks in PvP that either up my damage potential or make landing my shots way easier. I am not you though, and you should feel free to live out your Team Fortress 2 medic build fantasy till your heart's content. Moving on, we come to the favorite perk of Ewan McGregor, High Ground. Gain bonus damage when attacking targets from higher ground. Now don't get too excited, all you jumpy hunters and Heat Rise and Warlock bros. That extra damage provided does not kick in if you're in the air.
Well, duh, Fallout. It's high ground, not high air.
Yeah, I get it. Still bummed. The extra damage is around 20% in PvE and 10% in PvP. As far as activation criteria goes, yeah, you have to be on higher elevation, but by how much exactly? A foot? An inch? Here's a good rule of thumb. If your feet are around the same level or higher than where your enemy's head would be if they were standing and not crouching, then you will get the extra damage. Overall, in PvE, I think there's a lot of easier ways to ramp up your damage output. However, if there ever comes a day where we can get high ground in column 3 and another damage boost perk in column 4, go ahead and give me a wake-up call. I would be interested in trying that out. In PvP, this will probably be one of those niche weapons that some crazy people like Cami Cakes break out depending on the map for trials and whatever goofy cheese spots they can reach on that map. I saw a video from Shield Maiden, go check her out by the way, that pointed out that when combined with a Warlock Empowering Rift, certain snipers can deal up to 200 damage, 209 when combined with the Sanguine Alchemy, and that is in the body. That right there is strong enough to one-hit body shot people, but again, only works if you're standing on higher ground than the enemy and standing in a Empowering Rift at the same time. Probably enough to catch some players off guard. Maybe if the enemy ain't the brightest crayon in the tool shed, you'll catch him a few more times, but again, very niche. Not a perk I'm super wild about right now, but I'll keep fiddling with it for sure. Next up, an extremely interesting one that caught my eye right away, Barrel Constrictor. Hey, isn't that what everybody called your mom in college? Final blows with this weapon reduce the projectile spread of its next shot for a short duration. Sounds like a home run, right? Well, yes, but also no. Let me explain. First, I wanted to see how tight the pellet spread of your shotty got when the perk actually turned on and how long it lasts for. Turns out the answers are around an 8-second duration, which is fine, and noticeably tighter, which is great. Check Check it out, I lowered my FOV to the minimum amount just so you could get a better view. Get a kill, the cone becomes very tight, then when the timer is over, it widens back out a lot. Having a tighter pellet spread on shotguns is awesome because missing your target with 1 or 2 pellets can mean the difference between getting a kill and needing to fire a follow-up shot, which your opponent wants because it means they have more time to kill you. However, even though Barrel Constrictor is great on paper, I got problems with it that are probably going to prevent me from actually using it in PvP. Here's my main gripe. Shotgun perk competition, to me, is among the highest perk competition for any weapon type in the game. Opening shot is a perk so valuable to me for shotguns that if a shotgun either can't roll it or doesn't have it, I will flat out not use that shotgun in PvP, with the only exception being conditional finality because the utility on that gun is god tier. Imperial Decree, Matador, Found Verdict, Astral Horizon, all great shotguns that I'll only use if they have opening shot. You legit feel it when you don't have that perk turned on. Opening shot improves aim assist, range, and tightens your accuracy cone a tad too, and while it doesn't seem to tighten things as much as Barrel Constrictor, opening shot resets around every 3 seconds and doesn't require you to get a kill beforehand. It's almost always ready to go at a moment's notice, and that's part of why it's so damn good. In theory, I might be open to the possibility of using Barrel Constrictor on a shotgun that also has the ability to roll opening shot and use them together. But Swordbreaker has both perks living in column 4, and Deadpan Delivery flat out can't roll opening shot at all. Also, if I use a shotty with Barrel Constrictor and opening shot, that means there's no room for either Surplus or Threat Detector, 2 perks which I also consider borderline mandatory on shotguns for their overall buff to handling. What we have here is a classic conundrum, 3 perks that are great, but in a world where we can only pick 2, I'm going Threat Detector or Surplus and opening shot 100% of the time. If something drastically changes with shotguns in the future, I'll reevaluate all these perks, but for now, Barrel Constrictor is a great perk that will unfortunately remain on the bench, at least for me. Moving on to Enlightened Action. Dealing damage improves reload speed and handling. Let me get an immediate gripe out of the way in the form of an open letter to Bungie. Dear Bungie, I know that the bottom left corner of the HUD is getting comically overcrowded these days, but can we please have some way to visually indicate how long this perk works for? I was extremely disappointed to go test it out only to be met with a completely blank HUD. The detailed description on D2 Foundry estimates the perk can stack 5 times. I took an auto rifle over to everybody's favorite punching bag Carl and shot him 5 times before reloading and then 10 times. It seems that either you don't build stacks one shot at a time or maybe the ceiling is higher than 5 stacks. My reload was definitely quicker when I shot Carl 10 times as opposed to 5. Again, would probably be really helpful if we had some info on the HUD. But anyway, I could see Enlightened Action being pretty damn good in PvE as reloading is the forever enemy of every PvE player. A Cataphract grenade launcher with bait and switch and Enlightened Action seems awesome to me on paper. Damage a boss with your main 2 weapons, swap to Cataphract and start firing. You proc bait and switch for that sweet extra 35% damage output, and then Enlightened ramps up your reload speed a ton so you can pop in a new drum and keep going. I'm probably less excited about the perk in PvP, even though I always appreciate when weapons have good handling. It's gonna depend on the gun and the situation for sure, but the vast majority of the time I'm usually into PvP weapon perks that either up my damage output or make it easier for me to shoot people. Things like opening shot, moving target, rangefinder. I'll go ahead and keep an open mind for the PvP department, but for right now, my immediate thought is hell yeah on PvE weapons for both ad clearing and big DPS weapons. Up next, we have Loose Change. Applying an elemental debuff to a target increases this weapon's reload speed for a short duration. Your enjoyment of this perk, naturally, is going to be directly tied to how often you're able to apply debuffs with your build in PvE. I was really excited to try out this perk with my Briarbind Void Warlock, as I love the Briarbinds. My hopes and dreams were quickly dashed when I realized that, for whatever reason, Child of the Old Gods doesn't proc Loose Change, which I feel is an L overall, and immediately poured ice water all over my crotch. Depending on the weapon though, I'm sure Loose Change could be cash money. Maybe on something like a Chill Clip rocket launcher, that could be pretty hot. Unfortunately, Loose Change only lives on 3 weapons in Season 22, Kept Confidence, Bria's Love, and Nox Perennial V. Add it to an SMG or maybe a rocket launcher and the perk may have my attention, but for right now, it kinda doesn't. Next we come to Precision Instrument. Dealing sustained damage increases precision damage. damage. Interesting perk, but also very unforgiving. Here's how it works. Every time you land a shot, you gain a stack up to a maximum of 6. Here is the damage you get per stack. As you can tell, it caps off at 25% at level 6. Now, while you can ramp up the number of stacks by landing either a headshot or a body shot, the extra damage will only be given to your gun if you shoot the enemy in the head. While that all sounds pretty good, the perk duration is really short, about 1.25 seconds or around 2 on a bow, and on top of that, missing removes all of your stacks. It's a very all or nothing perk that you're probably going to need to tinker with on your own to determine if it's something that you'll enjoy using or not. Unfortunately, there's a lot of perks in the game now that help you dish out extra damage, and many of them are definitely more forgiving than Precision Instrument. That being said, I'm gonna keep my eye on this one, because if they eventually put it on something like a pulse rifle, that could be kind of like a wilder version of Headseeker, which I'd be really interested in for PvP. So far though, the perk hasn't blown me away yet, but if that changes in any capacity, I'll be sure to let you know. Next up is Sword Logic, a weapon perk that, as you can probably imagine, only available on weapons obtained in the Crota's End raid. The perk reads as follows: final blows with this weapon grant bonus damage. The strength and duration of the bonus increases when more powerful targets are defeated. There are 4 stacks you can get of Sword Logic, and unlike a perk like Rampage, stacks don't go up for just killing more and more enemies. Whatever rank of enemy you kill will determine what tier of Sword Logic damage buff you will get. Damage values for each stack are as follows: 15% at level 1, 25% at level 2, 35% at level 3, and 50% at level 4. The duration of the perk also depends on what stack you kill. Minor enemies will put you at 1 stack for 5.5 seconds. Elites and Guardians in PvP will put you at 2 stacks for 7.5 seconds. Mini bosses and enemy players in their super will put you at 3 stacks for 10.5 seconds, and bosses will give you 4 stacks for 15.5 seconds. So for example, if I'm using a Rampage weapon in PvP and kill 3 Guardians in a row, I have ramped up to Rampage level 3. However, if I'm using a Sword Logic weapon in PvP and kill 3 Guardians in a row, I'll only ever achieve Sword Logic level 2. My damage can only graduate to the higher tier if I kill a more powerful enemy. Here's where it gets really interesting though. Getting any kill when Sword Logic is up will refresh the timer of whatever tier you happen to be at. For example, I kill a boss enemy during Altar of Sorrow on the moon, giving me Sword Logic tier 4. Now, when I kill any enemy, even a red bar, I continually reset my timer at tier 4 and keep getting that extra 50% more damage. This perk has a lot of potential. In PvE, the immediate downside is that Rampage offers a much easier way to reach max power, carving through red bar enemies until you hit tier 3, whereas with Sword Logic, you'll only be awarded with tier 1 by doing the same thing. Managing to hit a level 2, 3, or 4 via a well-timed final blow with Sword Logic though is huge, and as long as you have enemies to keep that ball in the air, you can keep that damage going for a while. However, that might be a tough sell, as weapons with a lot of punching power like Song of Iryut can also get target lock, which is much easier for damaging big targets as there's no setup required at all. Have a teammate tag the big bad with Divinity, machine gun go brr, don't miss any shots, and immediately ramp up to max damage potential on target lock. Granted, I think max damage on target lock is around 40% lower than the ceiling on Sword Logic, but again, target lock requires no setup at all and will likely be the better play for damaging big boys. I think if you're into using your power weapon to shred through lower rank enemies, which I actually do if I happen to be the designated div bitch for any given PvE activity, Sword Logic Song of Iryut would go hard. On the PvP front, again, a lot of potential. Sword Logic on both Abyss Defiant and Oversoul Edict can immediately put people in the ground after just 1 kill. And Lord knows I'm not a 180 RPM hand cannon guy, but of course I have to mention that yeah, the perk is a godsend on Word of Crota, which can immediately help you get those highly coveted 3 taps. Even though I dream of one day getting more weapons that have Sword Logic, I can't imagine it would ever happen, because in PvP, Sword Logic is straight up kill clip but better. 25% damage buff, which is now completely equal to kill clip, which got brought down a while back, requires requires no reload to activate and lasts longer than Kill Clip. The one thing Kill Clip has over Sword Logic is that you can manually delay the start of Kill Clip by waiting a second or two before reloading to trigger the perk after a kill, but that's kind of a dangerous game. I'd rather just get the flat 7.5 seconds right away and go to town. Overall, I'd have to say that out of all the new perks on the table, Sword Logic might be my favorite, and if you haven't yet for whatever reason, I would highly recommend giving it a whirl in either PvE or PvP. Moving on to origin traits, and kicking things off with one I was really disappointed by, Head Rush. Standing up after crouching for a short time grants this weapon a brief period of improved handling and reload. I think I, like most people, immediately thought, yo, so it probably activates on a crouch slide, right? Turns out, no, it doesn't. And I guess if it did work that way, it would probably be way too good. But here's another problem. Even when you straight up crouch for a second or two and move around, it still doesn't activate sometimes. There were legit times when fiddling with this trait where I was fully crouched and crab walking around for at least 2 seconds, stood up and nothing happened. You really gotta pop a squat for a few seconds and plant yourself to fully guarantee that this origin trait turns on, and I don't know if that's gonna do it for me. If Bungie really wants me to get hype over this origin trait, I would say either go with faster activation criteria or a longer duration when activated. Next up, we have Cursed Thrall. After defeating a target with a melee attack, final blows with this weapon cause targets to explode. A PvE focused origin trait for sure. While it does work in PvP, how much it helps you is going to be directly tied to how often you get melee kills. And then of course you have to have another target right nearby so you can get a weapon kill before the timer on Cursed Thrall runs out. The explosion deals about half damage to an enemy guardian. Not bad, but definitely no Cloud Strike. In PvE, I think this origin trait is really fun in the ad clear department. Like Sword Logic, I wish it were on more guns, but I understand how thematically it is pretty tied to the Crota's End raid weapons. Moving on.
Wildcard, bitches!
Final blows with this weapon have a chance to create experimental submunitions at the target's location. Translation, get a kill, and a Telesto bolt can pop out. The origin trait actually works differently in PvE and PvP, so let's start with the former. In PvE, Wildcard seems more likely to activate depending on the tier of enemy you kill. Red bar enemies have about a 25-ish chance to spawn one single Telesto barb when killed. Big ol' mini bosses though have a much higher chance, and when they die, 3 barbs will pop out instead of 1. In PvP, Wildcard seems to happen 100% of the time on a kill, and like higher tier enemies in PvE, killing a Guardian will always pop out 3 Telesto barbs each and every time. Even though this origin trait is a complete and total dice roll, I actually kinda love it. Each time I get a kill with a wildcard weapon in PvP, I get a little giddy, stupidly crossing my fingers on the inside and hoping that some poor jabroni will walk into it and get really upset. Statistically, it probably won't help you out the majority of the time, but again, when it does, God, I love it. My first game trying it out, I actually got some free kills thanks to the origin trait and a few moments of extra chip damage here and there. Total crapshoot, but goddamn do I want this origin trait on more weapons just for the fun factor. Thumbs up from me. Finally, we come to Nadir Focus, which has a lot going on. Sustained fire increases accuracy and range. Increased sword lunge distance for swords and projectile velocity for launchers. The sword part is easy to measure. Think of Nadir Focus as we have Eager Edge at home. Eager Edge will make you really zoom at the cost of a short cooldown. Nadir Focus, on the other hand, will only make you go a little bit further than you normally would, but the upside is no cooldown. I've been using it on the opening lantern encounter in Crota's End. It gets me into less trouble than Eager Edge, I've found. But of course, for extreme competitive zoom-in, yeah, no substitute for Eager's Edge. Regarding the more accuracy and range part, that is really hard to measure because again, no activation timer or alert on your HUD. I figured it out though by just keeping an eye on my damage numbers when shooting a buddy from damage drop-off range. If we go slow-mo, it looks like the tail end of my second burst, my damage goes up from 8 to 9. That only took about half a second of firing the gun, so it looks like Nadir turns on kinda quickly, which I appreciate. Wildcard may be unreasonably fun, but Nadir Focus gives you more range and accuracy for using your weapon no differently than you normally would, and it therefore gets my gold star for favorite new origin trait. Yeah, the benefits are probably teeny, but again, better accuracy and range literally for free? Beautiful, I take that all day. If you enjoyed today's video at all, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe if you're new. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on stream.